Over just 48 hours, a wave of truly violent weather tore across Texas. It left behind a trail of destruction, darkness, and a whole lot of questions. We're going to piece together exactly how this crisis unfolded, starting with the one question everyone in Fort Worth was asking. This was it. This was the question racing through everyone's mind in Fort Worth on the night of October 24th, as a storm with terrifying intensity started to just carve its way through the city. It all kicked off with this sudden, terrifying force. Weather observers on the ground said it wasn't just rain. They were hearing winds so powerful, they sounded like a freight train barreling down the tracks. And almost immediately, the damage reports started pouring in. This wasn't just a storm. It felt like it was tearing the city apart, piece by piece, starting with the very roofs over people's heads. And as if the wind wasn't enough, right? The rain, a torrential downpour that quickly just overwhelmed the streets, turning roads into impassable rivers and adding a whole new layer of chaos to the emergency. Okay, so let's zoom in and take a closer look at what actually happened in Fort Worth that night. Because while the impact on the ground was immediate and super intense, the official story was still trying to catch up to the reality of the situation. And here's a really crucial point. There was this official uncertainty. To everybody on the ground, the damage looked and felt like a tornado, but the experts, the National Weather Service, they held back on confirming it, and that created this really tense gap between what people were experiencing and what was being officially declared. But look, regardless of what you call it, tornado or not, the storm left an undeniable scar across the landscape. You could literally trace its furious journey right through the city just by following that trail of damage. So based on what eyewitnesses and weather observers reported, this is the most likely path it took. It seems to have spun up near Interstate 20, right in the McCart area, and then it just tracked right along the busy I-35 corridor towards Berry. That path put it in direct contact with a whole lot of city infrastructure. And the real-world consequences? They were severe, and they were widespread. We're talking power lines ripped down, massive billboards just torn to shreds, and damaged roofs all across the area. At the same time, key roads like Decatur Avenue and the Jacksboro Highway were completely submerged, bringing parts of the city to a grinding halt. But here's the kicker. The chaos in Fort Worth was only the beginning. This wasn't just an isolated event. As the city was just starting to survey the damage, the threat was already escalating, growing into a crisis that would soon engulf a much, much larger part of the state. So, on the very next night, October 25th, a new and even more widespread severe weather system just exploded over Houston and the rest of southeast Texas. The crisis was entering a dangerous new phase. The defining feature of this second wave was the absolutely ferocious wind. Gusts were recorded at over 100 kilometers per hour. That's powerful enough to cause some serious damage on its own. And these winds weren't just in one spot. They were hammering a massive, heavily populated region all across southeast Texas. And while that first storm was really defined by all the structural damage and the possibility of a tornado, this second storm's impact was measured in a different but equally devastating way by the number of people it just plunged into darkness. 260,000. Just let that number sink in. That is the staggering human toll of this second storm's fury. And listen, this isn't just some abstract statistic. Every single one of those numbers represents a family plunged into darkness, a small business that can't operate, traffic grids failing. It's the beginning of a whole cascading failure across an entire region, all triggered by the wind. So when you look back at these chaotic 48 hours, you see two very different kinds of storms that together created one statewide crisis. Breaking them down side by side really reveals just how different their destructive signatures were. So on October 24th in Fort Worth, the danger was that potential tornado, right? It unleashed intense, localized structural damage. Then, the very next day, across Houston and southeast Texas, the danger came from severe thunderstorms, whose extreme winds crippled the power grid on a massive regional scale. Two very different events, with one enormous impact on the state. And all of this leaves us with one final critical question. We've seen a localized, really intense event and a widespread, infrastructure-crippling one happen back to back. It forces us all to ask ourselves, is my community, is my city truly prepared for the multiple ways severe weather can strike?